Gaelic Football on Off the Ball.
With AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out #TheToughest for more.
Welcome back. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. It's Kerry Dublin in an All-Ireland football final in 2 weeks' time. Dublin never actually behind against Monaghan, but equally could not shake them off until the closing 10 minutes or so. And then they really did shake them off by 7 points. As for Kerry, they were in a lot more trouble against Derry. There is a fair argument, I think, that the better team may have lost at Croke Park yesterday, but class told in the end, and Kerry have David Clifford, which is enough class for any team. So Kerry Dublin it is on July 30th. Happy to say Darran O'Sullivan is with us. Hello.
Hey Joe, how are things?
Very well. Colm Boyle, hello.
How's things, Joe?
Which of you two wants to apologise to Derry first?
I'll let Darran go first.
Colm, you go with that.
I think we gave them the template, Joe, what to do. I think they should actually be thanking us.
yeah, that's the way to go.
Okay, well, we'll reach out to Derry and see if they want to thank you. These were two very good games, especially yesterday. I mean, that was proper, Darran.
Yeah, it was a good game. I think Derry's approach took everyone by surprise. Definitely from where I was watching it, I think it took Kerry by surprise, and it was a funny one. We kind of said last week that they needed to come with a bit of madness, a bit of maybe wildness running from everywhere. And it wasn't that they brought that. The build-up was quite slow. And I think Kerry were so passive up to 60 yards. All it took was one line break and it opened up. Probably wasn't as evident on TV either that the wind was quite strong. Some of the scores that Derry kicked were brilliant scores, but it was as if Kerry weren't expecting them to come at them. And Kerry kind of just kept letting them come to a certain point, and then it was too late to track the runners. The runners would get a yard on them. They were through. To be fair, a lot of the scores Derry got, they made it look very easy. And I was a bit surprised by how, I don't know there wasn't much atmosphere, to be fair, at the time. The build-up, as I said, was quite slow up to about 60 yards from the Kerry's goal, and all of a sudden Derry were just through and they were kicking great scores. The defenders were a yard or two off their men all the time, but Derry's movement was brilliant. They were very effective, efficient up front, and I'll be honest, we were getting nervous. I was with Kieran O'Leary and Paul O'Connor, two former teammates, and we were kind of looking a bit sheepish. I had Mark Lynch behind me and the two Bradleys weren't far away, and my predictions weren't looking too good. But it was definitely, I think it was as much as the class of David Clifford, there was the experience, Kerry's experience, I think, showed in the end. And in fairness, we talked about the heavy training that we thought they must have been doing throughout the group stages. The training they've done, it's coming through. They're finishing games strong now. So, yeah, definitely lucky to get through this one.
Your reading of the game there is totally in tandem with Jack O'Connor's, because he was talking afterwards and he said second half we adjusted and tactically we dropped off their kick out a bit, but we formed a better defensive line higher up the pitch. So that tallies with your sense that by the time they were trying to stop Derry, it was almost too late in certain instances. Yeah,
like you give a fella a yard, it's very hard to make that up inside the 45, and with the wind that was there, like Derry have good footballers, they've proved that throughout the year. Like I said, Kerry did look a yard off him, and I do think Kerry have been leaving teams come at them, and I think that probably comes from the Mayo game where the ball's being kicked out long, Mayo were winning it and Kerry were wide open. I think that, I won't say fear, but a bit of worry was there, and like that they showed a bit of bravery in the second half. They started pushing up, they started being more aggressive. I think that probably came from Stephen O'Brien coming on as well. It was just they just brought more aggression, more energy, like I said, a bit more bravery as well to push up on the kickouts. And didn't leave Derry build up momentum either. But like I said, that wind was tough, and I think it was only when you see Derry only got 4 points, and obviously one of them was a late free into the hill in the second half. Like Kerry kicking 1-8 was good scoring into that. Obviously, look, Clifford was to the fore, and look, I actually don't have the vocabulary to keep talking about him, to be honest, at this stage. I don't have any words for him. he's just different class. Like, and we're very lucky to have him, because we wouldn't be in the position we're in now without him.
No, I think without Clifford yesterday, Kerry are in big trouble. They're in big trouble anyway with him, but they're not getting out of jail yesterday without him. I hadn't appreciated that about the win. That explains a lot, I think, because Derry from 25-30 metres in the first half were sublime, and they had one wide in the entire first half, and then the second half 14 shots and they had 3 scores. And I think as well the unintentional one, ironically as well, which is their fourth, but just the 4 scores in the second half. So the win certainly played a part in that. Colm, the start was lightning in that Derry start million miles an hour, have the goal chance, launch another ball in straight after, and then Kerry have a goal chance, and then Derry scored the goal, the McKinless goal. Rogers unmarked runs through, shoots, McKinless follows up, and then 35 seconds later Kerry score a goal, and it's Gavin White, Gainey and Sean O'Shea involved. And so you've had 4 goal chances with 2 goals scored in the opening 6 minutes. And at that point I was thinking, okay, don't Derry now suddenly say, everyone calm it down. And in fairness to them, they didn't. That first half, Derry's running, the job they did on Kerry kickouts at times, and then their shooting, which we've mentioned, 1 wide in that first half. I mean, they were 3 points to the good at the break and were every bit deserving of that. They were excellent in that first half.
They were absolutely super, Joe. And if you go back 12 months ago to their performance in the All-Ireland semi-final last year against Galway, like how much they evolved in 12 months in how they played last Sunday. Like they wouldn't have been able to play like that last year, I don't think, in the semi-final. Like they scored 1-6 against Galway in the whole game last year. Half-time the last day, they'd won 11 on the scoreboard. And some of their attack and play, like Darren mentioned it there, the way they broke the line and attacked it. But I think crucially what they did was, like Darren mentioned, the attack or the pace they brought into their attack. But they had Tig Morley occupied, and I think that was the key point. So when the likes of McKinless broke through, Morley wasn't there to meet him because someone had ran into Morley's space to just say, you come follow me here, I'm going to take you out of this area. And Morley, being the sweeper, and I've been there, this fella is just coming into your area to basically take you out of there, but you end up following him just in case he becomes a threat. And anytime Derry came through the middle, there was just looked like there was gaps everywhere, and Derry were really, really good in that. And straight away the intent was there, Joe, from the start. You mentioned it, they had a goal chance after 30 seconds if Niall Loughlin holds on to that ball. And that just shows with the intent and I suppose the difference that Derry were bringing to the game yesterday. But I think that's what they needed to do. Like we spoke here last week about if they were just going to play a slow base build-up play game, they wouldn't get the scores needed to win this game. But the key thing was, yes, they were starting to attack slow, but it was the pace in that they were injecting into that. They weren't doing that much this year, and I think they felt like they needed to attack Kerry. They might have saw a weakness there as well. They might have saw this as an area as we can really get at Kerry, and they went after it. And I think they felt like they needed to score goals, Joe. And we said it here last week. I think we're saying if Derry were to win this game, that they needed to score goals, and they created probably 3 goal chances, they score 1, 3 massive goal chances, and the other one that I spoke about with Niall Loughlin, if it goes to hand. Realistically, for Derry to win that game, they needed at least 1 more goal, that they didn't get, unfortunately.
Yeah. They had serious running power. I mean, Brennan Rodgers, McCluskey, you mentioned McKinless as well. Those are hard fellas to stay with at every moment. And then the bravery, like I think it was just before half time where Christian McCaig was involved high up in an attack, and you kind of thought, geez, who's marking Clifford if you're up here, but he was getting involved. And there was a point, Darren, watching on the TV, you would have appreciated this more at the stadium. I don't know if you were there, Colm, but Darren, there was a point where Derry were attacking in the second half and the TV commentary suddenly got very animated, and they were saying, like, if Derry lose the ball here, we can't emphasise in the entire Derry half right now, Clifford has 20 metres around him. He's completely unmarked. The goalkeeper's not in the goal. He's in the Kerry half, and there's one Derry defender maybe 20, 30 metres in front of Clifford. So if Derry lose the ball here, there's big trouble. And in fairness, I think they scored in that particular attack. But even that was a signal of intent, and I guess you would have had a fuller appreciation of that being there.
Yeah, and to be honest, it was a kind of flavour of the weekend. Bravery by teams actually made for great games. There was a moment like that as well in the first half as well. I actually think there was a free out given against Clifford, and Kerry made a turnover. I think he was 1-on-1 with Chrissy inside 60 yards. No, I think the first pull was by Chris McCaig, and then David got caught, and of course I was a bit animated in the crowd. I thought, why would a forward be pulling? But it was brave. But we said that like there was no point Derry going and trying to contain or frustrate. They had to bring the game to Kerry. And look, to be honest, like I was looking at Jason Foley before the game on McGuigan, thinking, Jason's in off that form, but he had a lot to do with him in the first half. I think one of the first balls that went in, it was a straight ball, and Jason came out, got a hand to it as he so often does. But after that, McGuigan kept his runs short and sharp, and Jason struggled to get close enough to him. And like that, because a lot of the Derry's attack, even though it got up to 60 yards, kind of out of nowhere, it was like the attack was like playing backs versus forwards at times. You'd have everybody inside 60 yards, one line break, and the whole thing opens up. But they were brave, but they didn't. Kerry couldn't get the turnovers in the first half. Second half, like it said, Stephen O'Brien's introduction, I think he had 2 turnovers and a block down in the first 5 minutes. It just signalled the intent. And it was everything that Kerry weren't doing in the first half. They weren't getting turnovers. They weren't getting contact. And that would have frustrated Jack, because like that, it was so passive. Like we said, that 1-11 in the first half. Like I remember looking up the scoreboard going, how was there 1-11? Like they kept eking on. It was a strange first half to be watching, because you were just kind of going, what's happening here? Like, get tighter. You're kind of getting frustrated, a bit animated. And then there'd be moments of magic. Like the football was brilliant. I would have preferred to be a neutral at it. No, to be fair, I was a bit too invested in Kerry. But like some of the scores we were witness to were incredible.
Yeah,
they were brilliant.
They were. Yeah, some of the Derry kicking that first half was extraordinary, with or without the wind. So Jack O'Connor, like, he was very honest afterwards, Colm. He said easily could have lost that game. Mentioned just after the break being crucial, and like it's no coincidence, it's Clifford and it's Sean O'Shea in the first 2-3 minutes of the second half. Sean O'Shea's marked out of the game in the first half, but comes good in the second in a big way. And I think Kerry win the first 14 minutes of the second half 4-1. Sean O'Shea scores 2 points as part of it. And then Derry start kicking those wides, and they end up obviously with a healthy enough tally in comparison with the first half. But there was a really, curious for your thoughts around this stage, Colm. There's a point there where Kerry are back in it, but then this kind of 6-7 minutes from 57 minutes to 63 minutes where Stephen O'Brien, as good as he was, he had a really poor kick on 57 minutes. It didn't even go wide. And then McGuigan gets a great point, and Derry are 2 points clear on 59 minutes. And then Graham O'Sullivan, the cornerback, comes up, and it's just wild. It's a cornerback shot, and it's Kerry's 8th wide. And at that stage, Kerry haven't scored in 15 minutes. And then Tony Brosnan hits the outside of the post, another wide on 63 minutes, and they're still 2 points down with 6 minutes of normal time to go, and the camera just cuts to Jack O'Connor and the lads sitting around him, and there's not much talk. Like, there's a real degree of, we've lost all composure here. Like, that's where you thought Kerry are big trouble here. Absolute alarm bells.
Oh yeah, you would have loved to know what was said when the three boys were talking at that stage, because that's exactly what it was, Joe. But the crucial thing was, in that period that you were talking about there, Derry didn't put them away. They had their chances to put them away, and they left Kerry in the game. Yeah. Like I mentioned McGinless there. He came through at one stage. It's probably midway through the second half, and he just breaks through the Kerry defence. And if he rattles that into the top corner, like, I think it was only, Croke Park was only half full yesterday, but I think the place would have exploded. And I think the energy that would have given his team to go and build from there. But he misses it. They obviously had a goal chance before that as well, that Neil Turner misses as well. And then they just start snatching on a couple of shots. They just start snatching, Joe, and then just each one they get, them more and more pressure comes on it, because okay, we're in front here, but we need to keep the scoreboard ticking over. And I think they just missed 2, 3, 4 really scoreable ones. I think Ethan Doherty's one just after that period you're talking about, Joe. I think that was an absolute killer, because it's one he should have been getting. And I know Darren is talking about the wind there coming into the hill, and it is tricky when it's a swirling breeze coming into the hill. But it's a one, he broke the line, he's 20 yards out to the right of the goal, All-Ireland semi-final. Yeah. You have to be nailing. Yeah. He pulls that, and like I said, it just left Kerry in the game, and no more than Dublin the night before. You felt the longer they're in the game, the more likely they are going to come good.
Yeah. And then Kerry bang 5 in a row. The two frees, the O'Brien free, maybe a bit soft. Clifford, great play. He won most of his frees, actually, Clifford as well. O'Brien got another, Clifford got another, Sean O'Shea then on the break, and that's that. The Derry manager, Kieran Meena, pretty interesting afterwards, Darren. He was saying, we came to win the game. We wanted to go home with no regrets. I'm in a state of shock. We had Kerry on the ropes. It looked like we were going to score with every attack. It's devastating. And he said that during the week they had planned, if Kerry go without a sweeper, this is what we do. So he said the moment 2-3 minutes in they saw Kerry hadn't gone with a sweeper, we had prepared for that. And he didn't mean this in quite as severe a way as it sounds, or arrogant a way as it sounds, but he said we cut them to shreds. And he just sort of said, we're in shock really, and to concede those 5 in a row and suddenly game over must be one of those moments where a dressing room is kind of scratching its head a bit. He said turnovers, not taking our chances, kick-outs, that's what's going to haunt us. So that was the Derry perspective. But I don't know, is your sense, like the columns, that it's a lack of composure almost on their part when they start snatching at chances?
It's probably a lack of composure, probably a lack of experience. How often they've been like semi-finals can be harder than finals. It's all at stake. There's an awful lot at stake. All of a sudden, what was easy in the first 20 minutes is extremely difficult in the last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And like I said, the wind, like I seen there in the first half, Clifford had actually come out and he looked like he was going to take a shot. He doubled back. He gave to Tom Sullivan, who looked like he was going to have a shot, and he stopped up. Like, I don't think, unless you're on the ground with the ball, you just don't know the effect of that wind. And like that, when you see a fella missing, back of your mind, you've missed 2. The next person in is a bit more cage, a bit more cautious, probably takes half a second too long and maybe the chance is gone. That all plays in your mind. When you get into the last 10 or 15 minutes, all of a sudden it's a reality. So in the build-up, all the talk, and you have yourself psyched up and you say, we can win this game, all of a sudden it's a reality in the last 10 minutes. You don't want to be that guy making the mistake. And there's a bit of fear, a bit of lack of it. Like, I do think the experience Kerry have had over the last number of years, like, I'd still consider a lot of the Kerry lads young.
Yeah.
But this team is more or less very little changed anyway in the last 3 or 4 years. They have a lot of experience. Obviously, they got over the line last year, but they had defeats as well along the way. And I think that's what got them through. As I said, their fitness showed in the end. They finished the game very strong. But they were never more than a score out of it. If they'd gone 4 behind, as Colm said, the crowd would have erupted. A different ball game then. It's a different pressure. Whereas when they're going wide, there's still that nervousness in the stadium. Whereas Kerry are used to that now. I don't think Derry are as used to that. And I think, let's say 12 months down the line, that will stand to them. But that's no good to them now. I definitely think they missed an opportunity. They had Kerry on the ropes. They had opportunities to win it. But as I said, them opportunities are a lot easier in the first half, in the first 20 minutes of the game, when there's not as much at stake.
No, it's true. And they don't have that Stephen O'Brien and others on the bench. That's always been an issue with the lack of depth in a Derry side as well. So, yeah. Jack O'Connor afterwards, Colm, like he's generally low to pick at anyone. But even he was like, what David Clifford did in the second half was unbelievable. That's the word he used. He said he was doing everything. He was in his own full back line. Not to mention the 9 points he kicked and winning the frees and the marks and even I agree with Darren. At the same point in the news round, you kind of run out of superlatives and you're into the realm of cliche with Clifford very, very quickly. But I thought it was even very striking the way Kieran Meena talked about him, the Derry manager. He said, we felt we had the best man marker in the game in Chrissy McCaig. He doesn't mean in the game yesterday, he means in the game, in the 32 counties. We had the best man marker in the game in Chrissy McCaig. But for us, it was never about taking Clifford out of the game. It was just about managing his impact. He's an incredible player. He may be the greatest player who's ever played the game.
Yeah, and it's probably gone to the stage, Joe, if you're keeping Clifford to 4 points in play, that you've done an absolute massive job on him. And like that's almost a ridiculous thing to say. He is just like some of the stuff he does. Like Darren, I'm sure down in Kerry, you're always teach to take the ball on the half turn. But there was one ball yesterday, Joe, it was kicked into him, and he actually took the ball on the full turn. He had his back to goal, but he actually wins the ball and is facing Chrissy McCaig at the exact same time, which is almost impossible to do. And if you're Christy McCaig in that scenario, you're just alarm bells going off, because he's already faced you up, you're one-on-one with him, and you know realistically he's getting the shot away. The thing that always amazes me about Clifford, and I said the same about Páirc Uí Chaoimh last year in the league final, a lot of McCaig's defending yesterday was actually really, really good. There's actually nothing else more you can do. He has this ability, no matter how close you are to him as a defender, to shoot up and over your block.
Yeah.
And it's an unnatural ability that he has. The surprising thing was how often he was one-on-one with McCaig. I think that's the thing that really caught me by surprise, that there wasn't more help there readily available, that he wasn't able to force him into another Derry body that was coming to help him, because a lot of the time there wasn't someone to help him. So I think that's something that was surprising. As good as McCaig is, and he is brilliant, probably not as good as he was maybe last year. I think he had an injury this year. But it was a great battle. In fairness to McCaig, he stuck at it. But one thing, Joe, you mentioned Sean O'Shea earlier on, and I think his performance in the second half has almost gone under the radar, because I thought he was absolutely brilliant in that second half at a time when Kerry were really, really struggling. And it's almost like everyone immediately gets drawn to Clifford, and that's only natural because Clifford is just out of this world. But I thought O'Shea was brilliant as well. And if
it's not easy when you've been marked out of the game first 35 to just turn it on.
Yeah, but still in that first half, Joe, he's a massive play in the goal where he comes at an angle, he takes the ball off Gainey, and another player who, especially, he probably hadn't touched the ball at this stage. Another player coming in at the angle might have tried and hit it at the keeper, you know what I mean? And the ball is saved and back down the pitch. But he has the presence of mind to just hold it. He knows Gavin White is coming again, pops it out in front, and it's an easy goal. So he has that presence of mind. And I think he's just going under the radar slightly how well he's playing.
Yeah.
Like if Clifford is the Ronaldo on this team, like O'Shea is probably the Rooney. His numbers aren't as big, but his influence is just absolutely massive on the team. I'm sure it's not gone unnoticed for Jack O'Connor. I actually saw a stat yesterday, Joe, which really surprised me. He's only 1-4 scored less in the championship from play than David Clifford, which is unbelievable when you think about it. So, yeah, it'll be his battle with John Small. I'm sure we'll talk about it again. But that one, I'd say if we put the player cam on that one in the final, it'd just be worth watching alone.
Yeah, and your point there, I know it's difficult sometimes without pictures. Your point there on Clifford taking the ball back to goal and in the same movement almost facing McCaig up. So it's just he can turn on a sixpence before McCaig even has a chance to give him a little barge further away from goal.
Exactly, Joe. So if Clifford or any forward wins the ball and his back is to goal, you have a chance then to almost turn him away from goal or bring him to where you want him to go, and it might give an extra couple of seconds for a McKinless or someone to get in to help you out in a double up. You know what I mean? But that ball I'm talking about yesterday, where he took the ball on the turn, the full turn as I call it, it was just absolutely sensational. It's something probably he could have done.
Yeah. I mean, there was one shot where it felt like McCabe could not be any closer. It went wide ultimately, but it did. You shouldn't shoot with someone that close to you. And he managed to get the shot away. Probably 95% of the players in the country are pulling out of that shot, but he has this unique ability to shoot up over the defender. But 9 times out of 10 or 8 times out of 10, he's holding the accuracy on it as well, which is just unnatural, really. Have you heard down in Kerry, Darren? Does he have hamstrings?
I don't know. I don't think he has anything. He's different to all of us.
You see the photos of him when he's just after kicking the ball. Colm talking there. He's been closely marked and he gets it high. Like it's borderline kind of a vertical splits. Something should be pulled somewhere. I don't know what.
Every time I see that picture, I stretch. It's just, it's unreal. But like Colm
wait till he hits 30, Darren.
It's all downhill after that. But as Colm was saying, and it's one of the reasons why I suppose we give out about the mark, I think his first 2 scores they're more or less the same position, but his first instinct is literally, as he's collecting the ball, to turn, and all of a sudden it's eye to eye, man on man, and he has this shimmy that doesn't even get him half a yard. But I think it was his second point that Paulie that you put into me, caught it on the hop. Like his ability to win the ball low, hit the deck, slide, and with the strength to pop up and be faced. Like Chris McCaig's he's right up behind him. The ball's breaking by his ankles. He's thinking, right, I better get in him now quick. But he hits the deck, slides, and pops up. And not pops up facing away. He pops up facing him. It's like, oh God, this again. But he gets this half a yard. And like I talked about the wind, and it might have looked but he kicked two of them from more or less the same position in the first half. They were just ridiculous. Honestly, like, you're just looking, like I said, I had a few of the Derry lads around me, and you just kind of turn around and you're just smiling at each other. Yeah. To what you say about it.
Yeah, it's everyone recognising, no, this is different level. And you know, because of the sheer talent, and he's such an original talent as well, like, we'd all pick him out silhouetted, the way he moves and the way he kicks. I mean, he's very much his own way of doing things. So there's just the sheer audacity of the talent married to the softly spoken, grand kind of interviews. That all belies the fact that this fella has real steel to him, and he's putting in big hits on people. And I remember a league game with Dublin a couple of years ago, he's in amongst it and jerseys are being torn and he's giving it back to them. Like, sometimes the really talented types maybe don't have that steel. He's got it in abundance. I think that's what Jack O'Connor loved about him. I'd say he loved that shoulder before the break. I'd say he loved all the dirty work, and like, dog, you know, he won't be intimidated is the thing with him.
No, the one thing Jack loves, he loves nothing more than a bio. Someone with a bit of spikiness and a bit of wildness to him. You know, a fella who won't be afraid to go toe to toe with a guy. And I think they have, like David, like, he has that in abundance. Like Jack mentioned it after, the pressure that's on him. And a lot has gone on for him this year between the club, family. Like, it's just amazing, the level of performance, the level of energy. He's so level-headed. Like, the interview after, it is very much a look. We have to dig deep. He recognises the game very quickly. It's like the emotion goes out of it straight away. He can see it for what it is. There's never a me or an I. It's we. It's us. Look, I'm like a fanboy all the time about him. It's getting embarrassing, but he is something special. Like, there's fellas have talent, but no one has everything together like him. And it's all about temperament and character. And like Jack mentioned, the scores are great, but when things weren't going well, he's the fella that goes back. He's the fella they all go to. And as Colm said, Shawnee's going on the radar. He was quiet in the first half, but to kick 3 points in any game, never mind in the second half when things aren't going your way, like, that's a massive, like, it's not even about ability then, it's character, it's temperament, it's mentality. The two boys are winners, and they play together for a long time. And the two of them, when it gets physical, and maybe that's where Kerry might have fallen down in years gone by, when it gets physical, the two boys don't mind it. No. They love it.
No.
Like, I was with Paul O'Connor, Kinmare, and he's his club mate, and they started getting a bit physical around the middle, and Paul just sat laughing. He goes, well, Shawnee loves this, and we just laughed. But it's like, for me, it's the two boys, it's their character, it's their temperament. It's like, to have a quietish first half, and let's say your man's getting the better of you, and come out and give a promise like that by Shawnee, it's fair going. Yeah,
no, I'm with you. So to round off the Kerry Derry chat, and Derry just emerged with so much credit. I think everybody, you know, in comparison with their exit at the hands of Galway last year, this was real stuff yesterday. Have Kerry gone up in your estimation column as the neutral, or down?
Well, look at Joe, like, you asked me 2 weeks ago if it was a Dublin-Kerry final, who would win, and I was siding with Dublin, but like, how can you back against a team with Clifford at the minute, and the form he's in? You just feel like no matter what the opposition do, that he's just going to bring on his team to another level. And had they gone up in my estimation, they probably have, Joe, to be honest with you, because they haven't faced a team like that all year, realistically, a team that were going to bring that aggression, attack with so much pace to them, and in a pressurised situation, because Kerry, deep down, they would have known they should have been winning that game beforehand, but they knew they were in for a real battle. They weren't playing well, but they didn't panic. That's the key. They just did not panic. And 67, 68 minutes on the clock, their level, it would have been very easy to panic in that situation, but they just dug it out. They got the 5 scores they needed. So if Anton, they're definitely gone up a level, I would say, in my books.
Okay, and a final word before the ad break, Darren, on Derry. Serious performance. Bring it next year. More of the same.
Yeah, look, I suppose, they are, I hate using the word, they're on a journey, but it is about progression, and you don't go from step 1 to step 4, step whatever. You have to go bit by bit, and I definitely think they will come away obviously disappointed with what ifs, but if I'm looking at next year, they're up in the top 3, and they'll be looking to go another step further. And they, like I said, it's no good to them now. They're not going to enjoy hearing. but they will have taken so much from this game, you know, and that extra bit of experience next year in a game similar to this will get them over the line. So like that, they probably were never in this. None of these players were in this position before. A semi-final of the All Ireland, up by a couple of points against reigning champions who are red hot favourites. That's a different type of pressure, and it is one you can only get used to by being in that position. It didn't work out from this year, but I can guarantee with the attitude that they seem to have as a group, they will regroup next year. They'll be back and they'll hit Division 1 hard, which will bring them on another level as well.
Okay, fellas, stay with us. Darran O'Sullivan, Colm Boyle talking GAA. Back in just 1 sec.
Off the Ball on News Talk. Down to business.
Now, this Saturday, the 22nd of July, I'll be bringing you the show live from the historic Reginald's Tower in the heart of Waterford City as part of News Talk's summer tour. We'll be chatting to some big and small businesses down there in the Daisha. I'll be visiting the Irish Museum of Time. There'll be lots of talk around food with the likes of Tom Dourley and Michael Kelly from Grow It Yourself. There'll also be live music and a few surprises. The event is free. If you'd like to be there, simply go to newstalk.com/events where you can register for a ticket.
Down to business.
Brought to you by Bank of Ireland.
So it's Down to Business this Saturday, live from Reginald's Tower in Waterford City. We'll be loving to see you there.
On News Talk. Conversation that counts.
Not sure where to start with your smart meter? Sign up to a Home Electric Plus smart meter price plan from Electric Ireland to see how much energy your appliances are actually using. Track your usage monthly, daily or even hourly and get tips and advice on how to use less. It's a smart start to controlling your energy usage. To sign up, search Electric Ireland Home Electric Plus. Smart meter and online account required. Features available after 4 months. T's and C's apply. See electricireland.ie.
What makes us love our county so fiercely, despite all the summers of hurt? What lifts us back up year after year after year? What stirs such passion in our hearts and brings us out in our thousands? It's something intangible, deep in our veins. It's our county. It's our people. It's in our blood. AIB, the toughest. Proud sponsors of the All Ireland Senior Football Championship.
The Rent-A-Room Relief Scheme is now open, and you could earn up to €14,000 a year tax-free by renting a room in your home to a student. This scheme is open to everyone and won't affect your payments if you're in receipt of social welfare support. Find out more at gov.ie/room for a student, an initiative of the Government of Ireland.
VHI Multi-Trip Travel Insurance is your passport to peace of mind. Lost baggage in Beijing? Hotel cancellation in Cavan? Sprained ankle in Auckland? Wherever you go, you're covered from only €59 a year. Buy VHI Multi-Trip online today. Terms and conditions apply. Prices for adults 18 to 64. VHI Healthcare DAC trading as VHI Healthcare is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland and is tied to Collins and Insurance Europe Limited for VHI Multi-Trip Travel Insurance.
Hey, what are you doing tomorrow morning at 10:30? Any plans? Well, if you plan on buying a car soon, then you might want to get to Merlin Car Auctions. Every Tuesday and Friday at Merlin, we have over 120 cars to choose from. Viewing starts at 8:30 a.m. and the auction starts at 10:30. Check out the Merlin Car Auctions catalogue, available today from 3 p.m. at merlin.ie.
Gaelic Football on Off the Ball.
With AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out #TheToughest for more.
We talked Kerry Derry with Darran O'Sullivan and Colm Boyle. As for Dublin Monaghan, they were level on 6 occasions, including 60th minute. But I suppose, Colm, it was less squeaky for Dublin in that Monaghan actually never led once during the game. Did you always have the sense Dublin were okay here, or was this getting a bit squeaky for Dublin as well?
It's a funny one, Joe. I was actually at this game, and half time I'm thinking Monaghan were probably in a similar position to what Mayo were 2 weeks earlier, in that they probably played most of the football, but they still found themselves a point down. And, you're expecting Dublin to come out with this famous third quarter burst and probably put Monaghan away early. But in fairness, that doesn't happen. It doesn't materialise. And there was just a stage in the game, Joe, and during that second half, about midway through that second half, I think it's just after Conor McManus gets his point from play. It's about, I think he makes it 12 points to 11, so Monaghan are a point behind. Hill 16, the Dublin crowd were so quiet, and it was almost reminding me of 2 years ago when Mayo played Dublin in a Saturday evening semi-final, dark, dreary, wet evening, and it was very, very similar to that. And just a roar, the Monaghan fans just got a Monaghan chant going around the stadium, and it was almost like the first time the people of Monaghan in the crowd believed this is actually on here. I think in the next play then, McManus gets the score, it's 12 on, and it's 12 all, and I'm just thinking to myself, Monaghan would need to win this kick out and get the next score to really put the squeeze on Dublin, to really make them feel uncomfortable. But of course, Dublin being Dublin, win the kick out, come down, Finton puts the ball over the bar, and I suppose if there's anything that sums Dublin up, Joe, it's the very next play after this where they have Monaghan and Rory Begg and Stephen O'Halloran bottled up in the corner, like the work rate that goes in to forcing that turnover or forcing that mistake from Stephen O'Halloran where he picks the ball off the ground. Like the Dublin players, you talk about pressing and energy, but they were so smart in how they did it. They brought Monaghan over towards the sideline, and when they got the sense that the opportunity is on here, there was just 4 or 5 of them, and they were sprinting. It was like the first minute of the game, not the 62nd or 3rd minute. Okay. And they get the free, Mania puts it over the bar, and then you just felt like, okay, Monaghan's chance is probably gone here. And in fairness, Dublin finished the game really, really well. But I thought Monaghan and Joe were absolutely brilliant. Like we talked last week about not going up to Dublin and having no regrets coming out of it. And Derry will have regrets in the fact that they missed chances, but they did a really good go at the game. I think Monaghan are different. I think Monaghan will look back and say, we had nothing more to give here. We literally had nothing more to give. I think they gave it absolutely everything. I think their ceiling took them as high as it could bring them in the game, and they gave it a really, really good go.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Darren, my sense from you and Colm last week was like Monaghan had a kind of 13, 14, 15 point ceiling, and you were struggling to see them get much beyond it, and I suppose so it proved. Ryan McAnespie had a great, if he'd squared a ball there would have been an easy goal at one stage. In fairness, McAnespie scored a great point later on, so not to single him out, but you know, they maxed out on a bunch of levels, Monaghan, really.
Yeah, and like that, it was a case of, as Colm said, going to Croke Park and leaving with no regrets, and it was all about bravery. I think they caught us. They probably caught Dublin by surprise with their attitude that they were going to go and they were going to go for the win. And I think Vinnie Corey said after the game that they felt they could win. That I suppose all the hype about Dublin had been built on one half against Mayo, and maybe he was right. I think you've come away from the 2 semi-finals and the 2 lads in the final not knowing exactly where they're at. Yeah. But it was the experience that they were bringing off the bench, and they're not hitting the same heights, but they are showing similar traits to the old Dublin team. Like Colm mentioned, that hunting in packs and winning that late free. They're doing things, they're starting to do things like they did before. I've heard is this the last dance about this Dublin team? It looks like it is for the last couple of weeks, that they want to go out, a good few of them go out in this, but they were made to work really hard for it. And even the point that put them point up going in at half time, I remember looking at it going, geez, there's nothing in that. A bit like Kerry got a couple of soft ones later on as well. Yeah. And it is a big turning point in the game. You're going in level after dominating the ball. I think they had over 60% possession going in. All of a sudden they're going in a point down. Yes, they'd be delighted where they're at, but despite playing most of the football, they're a point down. So there's small little bits that went against Monaghan, but like, what a performance. Look, I'll be honest, I don't think anybody tipped them to be that competitive, and it was only like that they had given everything. The last couple of minutes you can see, like, the goal was just, I don't really count it to be fair, but the game was done at that stage, but it was just, the bodies were gone at that stage. But what a performance.
Did either of you, by the way, so it's funny, I'm not a great one at the best of times for monitoring a referee, but in both games, Monaghan and Derry folk in the main obviously, but feel that the referees weren't great. Do either of you feel like we saw a bad referee performance on Saturday or Sunday?
From Saturday evening, Joe, like Darren references it there. I thought Dublin got 2 to 3 extremely soft frees, scoreable frees in that first half. I thought there was little to no contact in it, and I'd say the same about Sunday. I know there's a bit of controversy and talk all day on Twitter about Shane McGuigan and being targeted. I think that's complete nonsense, to be honest with you. But just in general, refereeing performances, like the foul on Stephen O'Brien, or the free they gave on Joe McQuillan gives for Stephen O'Brien. I know we're going back to the Kerry game, but like you wouldn't expect that in a club league game. Never mind 5 minutes to go in an All-Ireland semi-final. Like, I just feel like refs are gone too technical, and any form of contact now is a free. You know what I mean? And I think you're even seeing that in the crowd. When they see contact, they think it should be a free. That's contact is not necessarily a free. And I think Goff is the only one that has got the balance right between the technical fouls but allowing the physical contact as well. I don't think we're seeing enough of referees do that. I think an awful lot of the games we're seeing are almost non-contact, to be honest. I think a lot more should be let go. I wouldn't say, to be honest with you, especially on Sunday, I didn't think some of the refereeing was great, to be honest.
Okay, so just a bit too soft.
Yeah.
Well, because somebody texted in earlier in the show and they were kind of saying, like, we need to define the tackle in the sport. I mean, where do you start there? What is your understanding of the tackle in the sport? I know it when I see it type.
Yeah, like a tackle on me is very different to a tackle on Aidan O'Shea.
Yeah.
Put it that way. Like, we've all said that Aidan O'Shea would need to be bulldozed to get a free by a lot of referees, but like that on Sunday, like I think Tomas that you mentioned, like I think everyone, even your most diehard Kerry fan, when Stephen O'Brien got that free, we all looked at each other. Nobody knew what it was for.
Yeah, it's more of a stumble.
Freeze. Yeah,
I'd say he couldn't believe it himself.
I'd say delighted. Didn't know what was going on. But I think Tomas mentioned one then with Chris McKay pulled back David. He was lucky to get that, and I was there. Well, I didn't think he was, because I think Tomas's kind of backup for it was there was other moments like this in games where it wasn't given. And I was like, you're gone. The fella pulls you back. It's a free. But I just think that different games, the atmosphere, the intensity of games, you actually don't know. It's the same at every level. Like, we don't know what a free is. If a player is physically stronger than you, he doesn't even have to hit you hard or pull you. Like, it's a free. Yeah. I just think there's no consistency. I don't know where we're going to get to consistency either, to be honest. I think there'll always be issues with it. And that's going from club all the way up to county. I think sometimes referees just aren't close enough to see it. I don't think they get enough help either by umpires and linesmen. As Colm said, there was talks of targeting of Clifford or McGuigan. I didn't think so. There was nothing new. I know that people mentioned the Shane Ryan one, which I don't know. Like, if it was me, I'm actually jumping for that ball too, because you can protect yourself. But I wouldn't have said he jumped into Shane McGuigan because it was Shane McGuigan. But look, I don't know. I think the refereeing in general, I can say now I don't play it, but it has been quite poor. And I think going out for every game, you actually don't know what standard of referee you're going to get. Are you going to be allowed to get away with stuff, or is it the slightest touch going to be pulled up? So I can imagine how frustrating it is for players and management, especially this stage of the year.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I guess we are talking about fine margins here in both instances. So you reckon Goff is the best column? He's less rigid. There's less adherence to letter of the law. There's more a feel for the game. Yeah,
and I think obviously he's big on the off the ball stuff, as in if you're a defender and you hold your man 20 yards away from the ball or 30 yards away, he's big on that, and that's fine. You don't mind that because you know he's going to do it. Any game you're playing with David Goff, you're talking about that beforehand and say don't get caught, or literally don't do it because it's going to be a free in. But the thing I like about Goff mostly is that he's consistent with the way he rests. He normally allows that bit of physicality all the way through in the tackle. The one thing, and it's a real bugbear of mine, Joe, is a referee that will allow contact for maybe 20 minutes for the first 20 minutes of the game, and then the last 20 minutes he rests completely different, and any form of contact or any form of pull or anything like that is an automatic free. That's a real bugbear of mine, but I suppose that's been going on for years, and it's really hard to get it right. And I know it's an extremely tough it's a tough job they have, but I definitely think the standard could be, the overall standard in the country, I'm not just talking about the boys at the weekend, I think the overall standard could be way, way better.
And so you would have spent more time, I suspect, driving your car thinking about what can I do in a tackle than me or Darren. So, like, man in possession, you're alongside him.
I didn't think about it.
No, you didn't. Can you, like Colin, would you feel you could sort of barge into him a bit, and then if he goes down you're in trouble, or would you get away with it? Would you feel like, can you slap with the bandon? Can you just whack away there and get away with murder in terms of slapping? Can you pull on his elbow or his arm if he's running with possession? Like all these, and then you can probably do it a little bit, but if it's sustained, then the ref will blow. Like you're trying to. It's a strange thing when there isn't a very clear definition out there.
Yeah, well, I think the key is whatever you're doing, don't make it too obvious, which as what you were saying there, Joe. But look, to make it very simple, like if I was tackling Darren there, the first thing I'm trying to do was nearly slow him up. So try and get any form of contact across his chest or something like that, where it just might slow him down. And it might give you an opportunity then to maybe tackle the ball or dispossess him or force him back, or force him into a hand pass where you're putting pressure on him. You mightn't necessarily get the turnover, but someone else might get it 2 or 3 seconds later because you forced him into a bad pass. I think the near hand tackle is a big one for me, Joe. I think Mick Fitzsimons is actually a really good example for this the weekend, where McManus beats him in the first half to a ball, and Fitzsimons, just by coming after him, he's about 5 yards behind him, but he gets his near hand just alongside McManus, and he lets McManus knows that he's there. And it just slows McManus down, and it actually forces him into a bad solo. So by the time he takes his shot, Fitzsimons is there to actually get something on it and block it and put it out for a 45. While there's no defined tackle as such, I think there's so many small things you can do, like the near hand tackle, like just making contact with any form of the body and slowing them down. Obviously not in the back, but in the chest area. And obviously you're trying to time your tackle to when the player is making the actual solo or hop itself, which is difficult to do, because if you get that, it has to be right on the money. If you get that wrong, normally the player will feed the contact and go down and probably get the free.
Yeah. Darren, who was the best at tackling you in the most vicious way, but getting away with it? Vicious is the wrong word, sorry. You picked effective.
To be honest, for me, it was all about, like Colm said, if you get that near hand, and it doesn't even have to be aggressive, but if it's tapping at you even, it's putting you off. And you can misplace a solo or a hop. So a lot of the times it's just being there and being tight. In fairness to Colm, himself and Keith Higgins were probably the best at it, in terms of you were paying the hole, you were just niggly, you're always there and there'll be a hand. And a lot of it is contact. You don't need a big hit. A lot of it is, if you run alongside a fella for long enough and you're within touching distance, that hand, all he doesn't have to, it's just putting a hand, getting contact. You will force a mistake because you're afraid of the turnover. You don't want to be turned over. So if you don't make a mistake, what you're going to do is you're actually going to double back because you don't want to lose the ball. Yes. So a lot of it is, it's just about making contact, and it's more about being a pest, I find. Being in someone's head. A lot of times you make the footballer make a decision, oftentimes they get caught between two stools.
Okay, there you go, Colm. You're a pain in the backside.
I think it's to be clear, Joe, none of what Darren was saying there works on David Clifford.
Well, yeah.
No, he's an octopus.
So on Kerry kind of gone up in your estimation, Colm, you were saying, what about you, Darren, on Dublin? Like, they've had this glittering kind of 10 minutes against Mayo, and then they've had down periods as well. So where are Dublin coming into this final for you?
I'll be honest, I don't know where Dublin are at, and I don't really know where Kerry are at going into it. I think there's Cormac Costello, for one, is a fella red hot bomb. I think it's 12 shots in the last 2 games, and it's 12 points, and there's not a whole pile being said about it. But for Dublin to win, where I think Dublin have the upper hand is, I think if it's going down the stretch the last 10 minutes, I think they have more of an impact coming off the bench. I think their squad is stronger than ours at the moment. But Cormac Costello got 7 points the weekend. Yeah. He could very easily be held scoreless the next day. I don't think David Clifford will be held scoreless, but if Cormac Costello was held scoreless, there's a good chance Conor Callan kicks into gear and gets 5 or 6 points. They have more options like that, I think, at the moment. They have a good spread. I think if you're picking both teams in the morning, I think you more or less know what Kerry are going to do, 1 to 15. I think it more or less picks itself at the moment, whereas with Dublin, there's a lot of places up for grabs there. I think they have a few more options than us. But I think they're there to be got at. I think Monaghan spotted holes. They poked through the holes. They probably should have had a goal, maybe 2 in the first half, definitely 1. And they created a lot of opportunities. So I definitely think Kerry will look at that and think, look, we have an opportunity. I think the interesting thing is, look, Fitzsimons has been one of the best defenders in the game for a long time. I don't think he can mark Clifford on his own. I think when you have a fella dropping back, trying to get to Clifford, I don't think that's enough anymore. I literally think you have to sacrifice an extra man to be plonked beside him. But that kind of plays into Kerry's hands then, with Tadhg Morley being the sweeper and being allowed to drop. But I genuinely feel, I think this, as much as we were saying it's going to be the final 11 wanted, this could be 11 all with 60 minutes gone. I think it could be tight and cagey.
Well, we'll pick up on that point in a couple of weeks when we preview it. We're out of time. Colm Boyle, Darran O'Sullivan, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, fellas. Gaelic Football on Off the Ball is in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the Senior Football Championship. You can check out #TheToughest